Now, it is truly a great pleasure and a privilege to have our first dialogue with two of our guests from the community. And it's been so fascinating to me because so much of the planet is water. And so little of it is known to me personally, and I would say collectively to us. Some of you in here know it far better than many of the others. Some of you have chosen to explore, to adventure, to investigate, to research water in ways which fascinate me personally, professionally, intellectually, emotionally. And I'm looking forward to learning a lot about that over the next few days. But what's it like to actually be in water for hours and hours and hours at a time? What's it like to be far away from any semblance of land for days? To choose to go where you can't come back very easily. Or to choose to swim from the birthplace of one of Europe's most important rivers to all the way to the mouth of that river at the ocean. Every single kilometer. It's not something I would choose to do. And frankly, being in the middle of the Atlantic without anything around me for days is slightly scary. I've flown over it a few times, but haven't. So tonight, we get to follow a drop of water from the birthplace of the Rhine all the way to the Atlantic, and then all the way across the Atlantic as well. So our theme, as you know, is water, and the design team really thought hard about how do we organize this, and all of a sudden it was very clear to Alfredo, who thought and listened. He said, well, it's flow. It's the flow of water. This is what our agenda is like, and this is what we're following tonight. And so we have two amazing individuals to me. Natasha, who comes to us from landlocked Austria. I looked up and said Vienna, and she said, no, I'm not from Vienna. Why would I want to be from Vienna? And you're going to tell us why. And she chose to sail on an all-women boat into the middle of the Atlantic with expedition to explore and analyze plastic in the ocean firsthand. She's an ocean advocate and aims to help better understand and restore our planet through her advocacy and her actions. Welcome, Natasha. Let's give her a good welcome. And sitting sandwiched between us is Ernest Bromeis. And Ernst is a water storyteller and a water ambassador. He grew up only about 100 kilometers from here. That's where you were born, in Ardettes. All right, I looked it up. No, I looked it up. If you trust Google, it depends if you trust Google or not. Google Maps, I didn't look it up on the Swiss topography, but it said it's 100 kilometers, so it's a straight walk. And over the years, you have swam 200 lakes in Graubünden, plus or minus, probably a little bit plus. And as I said, he's already also swam down the 1,200-kilometer-long Rhine River. And so we're going to explore water with these two individuals. And first, I'm going to ask a few questions. And the three of us are going to talk for a little bit. And then you also have a chance, if you so desire, to also ask questions. We're not in a huge hall. We have the opportunity to do that. So, I'm actually going to start with Ernst. And first of all, why did you choose to swim down the Rhine River?
Because it was a huge dream, a huge desire. And as we all know, we as human beings, we are doing a lot with water. We are doing a lot with the River Rhine, with the Amazon, with the Ganges, with the Thames. But for me, the main question was, what is the Rhine doing with me? And this question, you can't give an answer if you are cycling or on a boat in direction Netherlands. You have to dive in. You have really to be in this river. And when you are swimming for weeks and weeks in this river, And yeah, this was an incredible experience for me.
And so when you say you just had to dive in, you started at the birthplace. You can't dive into the Rheinquelle.
Yes, you can. There are a lot of little lakes here in the Alps, thousands of lakes, and one of these lakes, there are more lakes, the sources of the Rhine, and they choose one of these sources, and then there you can swim, and then you have to walk till Ilanz. It's maybe 10 kilometers from here or 5 kilometers, and from Ilanz you can swim. Till the Rheinfall, it's a famous waterfall. So there I choose not to swim because probably I wouldn't be here tonight. And then you can swim, till Rotterdam. Yes. So there are not 1,200 kilometers, are 1,000 kilometers you can really swim.
Mm-hmm. And when you got to the along the journey, what were some of the thoughts which you had along the journey? Because you didn't do it like in 3 days.
No, this is really impossible. It's you grow with the river, and this is really for me interesting. The river Danube will be longer, huger than the river Rhine, but the river Rhine starts really middle in the Alps. Here it starts here, and the other side. As counterpoint, you have Rotterdam as one of the biggest huge ports of the world. So you are really swimming through the civilization. And when you are in this river, you swim through these huge cities from Basel, then you have Köln, you have all these busy ships on the river Rhine. So it's really also dangerous to swim. But it's also all these experiences. Maybe this was really a miracle. I was swimming the last 5 kilometers till the end, and I was swimming and of einmal.
But all of a sudden,
and sudden, I felt something on my back, and I was swimming, and I saw back, and I saw a bird. A bird was landed on my back. And I was thinking about sharks and I don't know what. But I was swimming the last 5 kilometers, and I continued my swim, and the bird came back on my back 2 or 3 times.
Really?
And when I came back here in the Alps, I realized that this was the hugest compliment, because I was part of the nature. Mm-hmm. So the bird wasn't aggressive. He said, "Hey, my friend, welcome here in Rotterdam. Now you can go home, but you are here. You are really part of the paradise." And this was so strange to be in the port of Rotterdam. We are all here living from this industry, from these busy streets, and then a bird is landing on my back. And this was so fantastic, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Truly amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And Natasha, you have a different story. You started in a port.
Yes. But when you said that you know, swimming through, and I'm a big swimmer too, so I love swimming, and I totally get what you're saying. Like feeling the water and understanding it is different. You know, head, heart, hand. You know, so for me it was, I started in Ponta Delgada, and I'm a big diver, so I did after a big. It wasn't called a hurricane, it was like a tornado. Mm-hmm. It was in 2019, and basically all the streets were just fucked on Ponta Delgada. It's Pico, it's a small island in the Azores, so in the middle of the Atlantic. And so we started diving up trash on all day, every day, 4 dives a day, and we're just collecting trash. And so there was a big community actually getting out of this, because it was like, okay, we could pick up some trash, and then there were like 12 to 15 people showing up. Because they have this issue that they live from tourism, and they have a lot of whales there that are usually local, and they have their kind of roots they do. And because of the plastic pollution and climate crisis, and you know the oceans just changing their pH, sort of, what is it called? pH, yeah, from pH neutral to sour acidity. Thank you. Yeah. They see, okay, we rely on that as more than 1 billion people when it comes to ocean. And so I said, okay, let's dive in and then see what we can take out in a way and how we can help the ocean. And the funny thing was I was underwater once, and I remember I was totally alone, which you never do as a good diver. Don't do that. It's buddy system. So please, it should not be. I should not be a role model in that one. But I remember I sort of lost my buddy, and I was like, okay, shit, where's my buddy? And the only thing I saw, and the waves were quite high, was underwater like a water bag, looking like a jellyfish. And it was swaying, and it was like somewhere beyond the sea. And it was so absurd for me because I knew back then that I would jump on a sailing boat crossing the Atlantic, fighting microplastic pollution or getting more information about plastics because the problem is that, you know, and sailing from Ponta Delgada to Antigua, the Caribbean, so we sailed the whole part. It took us 23 days. It was only women, yes, also women can be skippers, by the way. And yeah, so that was pretty awesome. And I must, I mean, I do agree, but I think also sailing can make you change. I mean, feeling is important, but being on a boat on your own with other people having the same sort of idea of what is happening, and then actually being really, really depressed all day long because of sailing through a gyre, which is basically accumulation zone of microplastics. So it's not the garbage patches that you see on the surface, but basically the small microplastic parts that are more than 0.5 millimeters in diameter. So it's really, really tiny, and they accumulate in a zone. Accumulate, yeah. Where actually fish are breeding because there's a lot of oxygen in those areas. So that's really bad, right? And in the beginning, you're so happy to not see anything on the surface, you see? So you don't, well, you feel happy. And then on the next day when you start sampling, you feel excited because you find so much plastic. And you're like, oh, hold on, wait, this is not good. And then you feel depressed. So I had all those feelings. It was kind of a roller coaster when you said, oh, fuck, I don't want to swim, or maybe there's a bird coming soon, or whatever. I had the same roller coaster of like a lot of emotions, being connected to water, being connected to the people that I was sailing with, and yeah, being connected to the animals that we saw and the rainbows and everything. It sounds romantic, but in the end, it's just, yeah, a plastic soup that we're seeing around the globe.
So, thank you. Describe, so you said 23 days, and how long until you saw your first, until you found your first sample? Was it a day, 2 days, 10 days?
So we had those predictions. So there is one great professor who does predictions, and he says, okay, because of the wind, like, you know, predictions sometimes don't work, as we saw today.
Yeah, we saw today, yeah.
They sometimes work. Sorry.
No.
But yeah, what he did, Professor Maximenko, University of Hawaii, he's really cool in, or really great in mathematics and doing those models where he says, okay, this kind of patch is going to go to this and that direction because of the winds, et cetera, et cetera. So he was predicting that we would reach the Jaya on the 3rd or 4th day, which we actually did on the 2nd. So we started sampling on the first day.
Sure.
And we started sampling in the harbor, in the surface already, to see how much plastic pollution we already found in the soil, basically in the harbor, which of course, and on the surface you see a lot of cigarette butts and all of that, which you maybe have seen in your like rivers at home, etc. And then the first actual sample we did on the 2nd day, where you actually surface, it's like a manta trawl. You know what a manta ray looks like, right? So you put it on the surface and you sample, so you have a certain amount of water running through the manta mouth, sort of, and then you sample on the surface, and you do the same in the 30-meter depth.
Yep, so you take
exactly
different levels, yeah.
Different levels, because we in the beginning thought plastic would not, you know, degrade and then go down. Yeah, that was the first time we found 7 times more plastic than plankton. And that was actually...
Wait, say that again. 7 times more plastic?
Than sargassum, which is an odd name for, it's a time of plankton.
Yeah, which was a shock.
It was a shock, yeah.
And how many days were you sailing when you just saw the plastic in the gyre?
You don't see it, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
You think you sit there, you see the dolphins, and you see the rainbow, and you just sail, high waves, of course, but You don't really see it with your own eyes. And the microplastic is also the thing you can't really relate what it actually was. You know, if it's a PET bottle that you see with your own eyes, you're like, oh, that's human made. Of course, somebody had to put it in a river, which put a lot of plastic into our oceans. That's why we're also responsible of keeping them clean. But yeah, when you see a spoon in your sample and you're like, okay, fish don't eat with spoons, so it must have been something that a human used before, and how the hell does it even get there?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, thank you for that. Now, you both have...
But maybe I can add
Sure.
microplastic you find in the ocean. You will find a lot of microplastic in the River Rhine. The River Rhine, it's 30 tons each year of plastic in the River Rhine. So when I swam there, I swam in the with microplastic. Probably I have a lot of microplastic in my body now. And you will find a lot of microplastic here at the sources.
Sure.
Yes, and this is
It's a big challenge for us.
It's a big challenge. So when I'm looking and seeing a sunset or a sunrise, I can see it with these romantic eyes. You have the same problem? I see it as wonderful. I'm there with my wife, and enjoying the sunset. And then I say same to Cornelia, my wife, I see a lot of microplastic. And it's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying wait, seriously, no, I want to explain that. No, you go ahead. No, you go. Seriously, explain it. So when you
should
see,
I explain? It's
so you mean microplastic in the air?
Yeah.
So that's what you mean.
It's about the cars. One of the problems with microplastic here is with the cars. So the cars, the
tires.
The tires. This is one of the biggest problems that we have.
Yeah.
Probably,
40% of the microplastic in the ocean is from tires.
40% of the microplastic
44 actually.
in oceans are from tires.
Yep.
You have to think when you drive your tires, you have to replace your
Exactly,
tires.
so
Where
like-
does all that plastic? Where does all the rubber go? It goes into the air,
Yep.
and it goes into the air and it moves. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh man, rainbow! I like rainbows.
You can still like them.
And
It's just that, and enjoy them, but be aware of the fact that, enjoy the rainbow and just still, just enjoy the rainbow. I don't want to take this away from you.
no. No, it's actually really important because what I want to ask both of you, I think that sailing trip changed you, or did it not?
But maybe the question is, why is all this trash there? This is the question.
Yeah, well, I was getting to that.
And this is our main topic maybe tonight, is this connection or the disconnection with the world. So when we resolve this problem, when we are reconnected with the world, probably there are less trash in our waters, probably.
More circular. Yeah.
And the reason why I think now it's all about plastics, but there is a lot of chemicals, etc., from farming and the industry, like going into the ocean as well. So we have to be aware. And now we're only talking about the ocean for me right now because I sailed across it. But there's some like water related. We pollute it at the moment, and the problem is that we so much rely on it, and that I wrote something down like Lucas did before because I was really touched by the music that we heard today. And I said, okay, it is really good to give the fish or life underwater a voice because, we hear people suffering in a way. We unfortunately not always tend to care because we think it's so far away, it's not related to us, but everything is connected. We're connected to water, we're connected to the ocean, and this is why we also should give the oceans and the water a voice in a way. And I think this is why we both are here, to inspire you to give a shit about water and to care about water and to be aware that it's something that a lot of people don't have access to and that we might not be able to have access to in the future if we keep on not pricing it, not giving it the right value, not thinking that, in Switzerland or in Austria or in Germany, wherever, we don't have access to the oceans, why should we care? Well, because 10 of the biggest river systems bring 90% of all the plastics into the ocean. You know, so it's the rivers and the community. Think locally, act globally. It's always the local trash that goes somewhere. It doesn't disappear in your smart village or city, you know? So I think this is something that we, if I can say we, want to point out, that water needs a voice, even though, and I thought this was really beautiful to hear it today in a way.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's very important. And now, the next couple of days, tomorrow especially, we'll have a moment, actually more than a moment, all day, a couple of days, where you'll be able to think about what are some of the things that we should be doing, could be doing, can do as a group for different activities or, say, projects, themes, ideas, and giving water a voice could definitely be one of those that can come under a category of communication. And so it's some of the topics that definitely could come. But I think it's really fantastic because you both you consider yourselves water activists and water ambassadors in many ways. So tell us a little bit more about what is it that you're doing. So if we think of one of our good friends and members of the community, Beat Kerr, who's not here, says, just get shit done. Just do it. So what is it that you're doing? What is it that we could or should be doing at... what are you doing?
The life as a water ambassador is not spectacular. It's.
Wait,
yes,
you don't
know yet. Now it is. Now it is. Yes, now it is. But probably there are a lot of water ambassadors here in this room.
Exactly.
Probably.
You should be positive about it and say how awesome it is and great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so we are 2, we are 3, we are 4, 5, 6, and so far. But I believe in the small steps, and I believe also in the steps that I can do. So what some rules as a water ambassador could be? I believe as a water ambassador, you should dive in a river, in a lake, in the Kauma Sea, next to the house, in the little stream, each year one time. You have to be connected with the water, because then it's absolutely, everything is clear. The second point is really difficult to do it each day. Every time when you are next to a river, next to a lake, to an ocean, pick up one piece of trash. Don't pick up one time, 5 times, and then for a year you are doing nothing. It's so difficult, and I think this is a great analogy also for our society, really for the change, is to do it every day. Not to do it only an event. So we are here 3 days. It's so important, and I love it now since 2-3 hours, and it's really great. But the challenge is when you are going back, when you are going home. This is the challenge. When you are alone, when you are there with your family, with your friends, and you are saying you should go dive in your river, you should pick up every time a piece of trash. One other rule is when you are here in Switzerland, in the middle of the Alps, in Europe, when you save water, you save energy. So it's power. You save power. And I'm so happy that we are drinking tonight really water from the sources. It makes really not sense to drink bottled water from Italy or France or from Antarctica here in Lax. It makes not sense. And if you really want, you need really bottled water, then drink the bottled water from here. So it's quite simple, but do it every day, every year, the whole life, and you will change something.
Thank you for that great advice, Natasha.
I agree. Yeah, and I thought it's so, in our countries, we're so privileged, right? Because we think, okay, water, even we flush our toilets with drinking water because we can, right? But the thing is that this movement needs energy. So that's why I wanted to point out, like, yeah, that's really important to make people aware of, that it needs a pump to put it, it needs energy. It still burns coal and fossil fuels to make it happen, to get into your, what is it called? The tank. Is it called tank? The Hahn?
The faucet.
Faucet. Thank you. Tap. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, we know what I'm trying to say. Tomato.
Come
yeah.
on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I believe, and what actually the main goal of X-Expedition was, not only making women in STEM and in research scene, and we published a lot about it, but also picking up trash is great, but it's like recycling. It's the ultima ratio. How do we actually make plastic from getting into the ocean? It's not about getting it out. Bojan Slad is great, and what he's doing is great. He should do it actually. He's trying now to clean up rivers, which is way more important than actually getting out the microplastic bits out of the ocean, which is still hard. So how do we, if your bathtub was running over, you would not grab all the towels that you have in your apartment and put it there, so it would, right? You would just stop the...
Tap.
Thank you. That, oh...
Faucet, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm with Ernst.
Perfect souffleur. So you would, right? You would grab the problem by its actual, like, where does it come from? You know, we know right now that each and every minute, as we sit here, 30 truck loads of plastic have been put into the ocean. 1 truck per minute. How do we make this? How do we stop making this happen? Right? It's of course it's a bottom-up movement, as you said, picking up trash. Getting allowed, not buying. We don't need single-use plastic here in our so well industrialized and so well sort of developed countries, right? And I think it's consumerism that we should keep track of, but it's definitely also, yeah, raise your voice and get active. Activism includes being active. So either, because we have people from London here, there's a great initiative of river cleanups and all of that, but there's also like, you know, governmental sort of activism and all of that.
Great.
Just raise your voice, you know, for
Great.
the fishies. Like
For the
fishies
Give
and
them a
the
voice.
rainbows.
Give
you
them
know?
a voice. It's really
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I promised you guys would have a chance to ask some questions too. This is that moment. Who would like to ask a question or 2 or 3, or are you just too hot and sweltering and want a glass of water? No microplastic here. On the back, who else has a question they'd like to ask? Okay.
Sorry, for any of us who don't know so much about it, can you talk about why we can't remove plastics from the ocean that easily? Like why aren't there yachts and ships and barges and who knows what? Like why aren't we just paying to get plastic out of the ocean?
Because the tiny bits that we're talking about, I'm not talking about the garbage patches that you see on the surface. We're talking about things that go from the surface until the Mariana Trench, which is 11 kilometers deep, as you know. So it's all this. It's all the layers of the ocean. The microplastic bits that we found were 0.01 per diameter. So you can't even really locate them. We were trying to calibrate the satellites of Copernicus. I think you have heard of Copernicus. We had a cooperation with them to actually make ghost nets, etc., seen so that they would not be able to degrade into smaller bits. So this you can do, but the really small and tiny bits you can't really get out because there have been. The problem is that microplastics, they're like sponges. So all the they attract chemicals. So chemicals attract chemicals. So if you have something that is made of PET or whatever, any combination, you know, that's also the problem. We don't know what is actually in the ocean. Big thing. So they are like sponges. So when a turtle eats something that is that big, it's not only the chemicals of the plastic that it eats, it's also the small, tiny, like the molecules of the chemicals around it, you know? So this makes it really, really hard to actually get them out. You can't really, you can't fish them out, you can't calibrate any technology that we have right now, you can't put in any chemicals, and as I say, I mean, 2/3, yeah, it's so big. I mean, 2/3 of our planet are covered with water, you see? Yeah.
Cool, thank you. There's another question right here. This has been...
Thank you. It was super inspiring. But I just wanted to know that, have you gotten a chance to speak to somebody from Coca-Cola? I mean, companies like Coca-Cola or companies which are the largest producers of single-use plastic.
I never talked with this company, but I talked also 2 years ago at the World Economic Forum, and I know a little bit the CEO of Alois Zwinki from the World Economic Forum, and I was talking with Alois Zwinki and said, hey Alois, the WEF is collecting each year a lot of figures, a lot of facts, a lot of data. And I think, was it something changing here at the World Economic Forum? And he said to me, "Boy, it's difficult, huh?" And this was really honest. Yeah, it's really difficult, because we could also maybe talk with Reto Gurner. He's here. It's difficult. Here we are living here with tourism, and tourism and climate change. There is a correlation between tourism and climate change, and so it's really a challenge also for all these regions here in the middle of the Alps, because the money comes from the tourism. How we manage now the next years here, when we have the goal to be in 2030 and 2040 really climate neutral. So it's a huge challenge, not only for this company, it's a huge challenge for Reto Gurner, it's a huge challenge for us as a developing world. Huh?
It's a challenge for each and every one of us every day, right? And there will be, in just a second, we are going to have a dialogue around sort of water systems and the juggling which needs to take place as one makes decisions. So this is a big question. It's not just those specific companies, I would suggest. It's much bigger systemically, and this is what you both are speaking to. And because it's a big question, we need to talk about it, not avoid it. And I think it's great. So we're having a couple folks, 3 or 4 folks we're going to talk about tomorrow, actually. Did you want to add something? And then I got one question, and then we're going to end.
We published our findings in Nature and Science, and we did some sampling to actually understand what this microplastic part was actually made of. Because the problem now, like law-wise or regulatory-wise, is that plastic-producing companies still don't have to tell you what is actually in their product, in the nurdles, the sort of the base of everything that, everything that is used for producing plastic products, because they say, oh, it's our recipe, so it's sort of a secret. And we, X-Expedition is trying to do that, to actually at least understand how much gets in the ocean from what company, and it's only about accountability. And so this is what we tried, and yes, we've been in touch with the big companies, because I think blaming them constantly, yes, of course, I blame them all the day, seriously. But at the same time, it's also about finding common ground, because the moment I don't talk to oil companies or to big plastic pollutants anymore, the moment I lose as an activist, the moment we lose as a society, because they still have the money, they still have the power, they still have the politicians in place. So this is why I think finding common ground is so crucial. You want, okay, is it, okay. I think that's really important. So finding common ground and still talking and not being afraid of conversations and conflict in a positive way, as, I want to give rainbows and hope, and, and when we're, honestly, it's really important.
I think that's a really great and important point, just to find the common ground. Brian, you have a question?
Actually, I had 2 points to make. The first, I'm an American, but resident in Europe for almost 30 years. I just came back from California, Long Beach, California, which is the 2nd largest port in the United States. Went to a conference there about gaming, and was absolutely shocked that in the Long Beach Convention Center, about 1,000 people, there was not a single recycling bin to be seen anywhere. They got a long ways to go. Now they had electric buses, they had hybrid buses, but no recycling bins anywhere, and everything single-use plastic. So there is the opportunity for Switzerland. If you can bring the American tourists here, show them how it's done, demonstrate it, maybe they'll go back and they'll understand there's an alternate way. I think that's part of the opportunity here.
I thank you very much for that, Brian. I think this is one of our hopes with your 2040 and a lot of the activities, trying to be lighthouse, so that when folks do come here, the things that we can do become real prototype lighthouses for folks to go away and be inspired and actually make change happen. One last question from Martin here up front, and then we're going to wrap it up, because I'm starting to get really hungry, and if I am, that means most of you are too. So, Martin?
Okay, I was kind of shocked when you said that 40% of the microplastic comes from cars. So, and it really made me think. So, I mean, I already have some doubts about electromobiles, electric cars. And so if the 40% come from them, it will come from also from the electric cars. It will come from the asphalt, from the tar, from the roads. I don't know what's your position on that.
I 100% agree, and I think when it comes to mobility as such, we have to start asking the right questions. You know, now we need this kind of, okay, there's this, it's a lot about, we can talk about that later, but in general, I agree 100%. It doesn't solve the problem. It just makes things more efficient. It's not about, we just re-engineer certain things, you know, it's not about, do we actually have to go from A to B? No, we say, okay, we make it more efficient and energy efficient and don't burn as much as fossil fuels. But I think we have to, maybe this is also a place for 2040 to actually ask the right questions, you know, not after COVID, how do we get to the old normal?
Back to normal, yeah.
Rather than, okay, how can we actually prevent things like that from happening? You see, because it's still a biodiversity crisis, actually. So I think, yeah, asking the right questions and not making things more efficient rather than changing, disrupting things is, I think, crucial. Yeah.
Okay.
Mobility would be
For
for 23 or 24.
There we go. We already have we have a proposition on the floor for your 2040 theme in the coming years to be on mobility. And we're open for this. This is Martin, came here last year, has been a wonderful supporter, and he knows that we're very open to hear from you what you think we should be talking about. It's really important. And with that, I'd like to thank both of you, truly, for sharing both your experiences, your hopes, and scaring us all a tiny bit.
I think we both want to give you both rainbows.
And it's a bit
And beautiful sunsets
and
sunrises.
I'm going to have beautiful ones every time we can, but also thank you for your passion and suggesting some things that we can do, right? And this is the key thing. Okay. All right. We're going to vote. We're going to vote. There's a whole table who's voted yes. All right. Last question. This is Ernst's table. All right.
So, okay, so you're gonna double hate me now. I attended a workshop by Anna this morning, and one of the things that I said I would try to do is to say things that I think I don't talk about my opinions politically, diplomatically, I try not to talk about them. But you gave me the courage today to actually talk about them. So I'm going to say something that's going to make me very unpopular for the next 3 days. So please fight the urge to not sit next to me. But I want to say one thing. 2.6 billion years ago, anaerobic life was created without oxygen. The byproduct and the poison, the waste that they were creating was oxygen. The reason why we are here today was because of a waste of another living system. And I want to put just this question that's in my mind. What if this is the start of another life? What if we're looking at different life cycles and times? And I don't have an opinion on it, but it always is in my mind. And I hope that that doesn't make me very unpopular. And if it does, you gave me the courage to become unpopular.
That's great. So, Zina, thank you very much for that. You'll see tomorrow there's a series of what we call the rules of engagement. One of those is being open, transparent, and listening sincerely. So, all you're congratulating yourselves, but we want to be listening. My daughter went to a university in Canada called Quest University, and she was considered sort of a right-wing radical, which for me is baffling. Because she is about as far left of center as I can imagine. And for her to be considered right wing, you have to imagine what the rest of the school was like. And they prided themselves on diversity, right? But you could only be diverse as long as you were from the middle of the center far left, right? And that was really interesting. And we had long talks about that and what it meant for her going to school like that and being called a conservative, which she hated, you know. So All I'm saying is, please do ask those questions, because that's what we're here for. And I'm going to come back again to say thank you very much, both of you, for being here, for your passion, for your dedication, for sharing with us. So thank you so much. Let's give Rilesing a hand.